Hi, and welcome to MindShifters Radio with the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce. I'm your co-host, Jeanie Ryce. We also have Dr. Tim Hayes, and we welcome you to the show. Today's Monday. It's Parent Teacher Monday, June 23rd, 2014. Our call-in number is 646-200-4169. Press 1, and that puts you in queue to talk to us. And we would love to hear your comments and your questions, because then that makes this your show. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, Jeanie. It is, once again, an honor and a privilege to have everyone who joins us join us for this project of understanding and integrating the ancient Aramaic idea of forgiveness. You sound like you've got a little in there, sweetie, have you?
No, I actually had turned Suzanne on already, and she's probably got a bunch of little ones.
Aha, okay, cool.
Hey, yes, 5 to be exact.
Hey there, young lady.
Wow.
How are you?
Great. How are you guys?
We are rock and roll. I'm back at Heartland. It's a little rainy here. And just getting buildings in shape to get ready for intensive. So we're back and on go.
Wonderful. Glad to hear it. It was wonderful to see you live and in person, Michael, last week. Or was that just, that was last week.
It was. Time flies when you're having fun, right? And when you've got kids.
Absolute.
Well,
I'm ready to rock and roll over here. We got everybody playing. We're actually at a big, beautiful pool near our neighborhood. So.
Oh, nice. Nice.
And, yeah. We spoke last week about a possible theme, and we had talked about on praising well. I get a lot of questions from parents concerned about praising and encouraging their children with words and actions that truly inspire versus manipulate and or cause guilt or other sorts of possible negative reactions. They read about praising well in the news, and there's some research around praise, and I just thought it would be a neat thing to explore in terms of the forgiveness work.
Yeah, sounds right on track to me. And one of the thoughts that comes to mind immediately when I think about praising children is to really encourage and support the true purpose of the child being expressed in their lives. A lot of times I think parents have aspirations for their children that don't have anything to do with who their children are, that they really haven't been listening to the purpose of the child or, watching for the purpose of the child, and so tend to move them in a direction that really isn't in harmony with their purpose. I remember working with one parent who had a son that he was determined he was going to be a medical doctor, and he wanted to drive a truck. So he typically went to medical school and walked and got his degree, went down into the audience with his degree in hand and gave it to his mother, and went off and got a job driving a truck. So I think that really the culture tends to push children in a direction that really the culture wants as opposed to honoring the child. So how does that fit in with the idea of praising? Does that trigger anything for you?
I think that was for me, that's right where I think the juxtaposition of the conflict for parents arises is they have desires to raise a child. They have a goal, let's say, to have a happy, quote, well-adjusted, successful, people have different goals, but they have goals. And so I think for me, we start with just what is your parenting purpose? To getting clear that is the purpose to create this outcome, like the idea that I'm molding this person, let's say, like what you said about having a doctor or some outcome that the parent is holding in their head. and then they're going to parent in such a way that creates this outcome? Or is it to know and love your child? And for me, I mean, my parenting purpose is to know and love myself, that my kids may too. And in terms of, like what you say with the children, absolutely, it's them making themselves known to you, the revelations that happen. What is their nature? What are their gifts? What are their challenges? And when you shift your purpose to knowing your child, not forming your child, and really get that this child is a formed, complete soul in and of themselves, and that we're here as their parents to hold hands and to assist them as well we can, and I guess challenge them as many times. I think that really lives for parents, that helps to shift that, okay, my goal is not this end, but it's the journey, not the end. And if the journey is to know my child, then I can put my awareness and my tools in that coming to know each other, versus feeling this burden and this responsibility that, I am responsible for creating this fully formed, all the things we put on ourselves, child.
Good. Well, I love the root of the word education, educare, the Latin, which means to draw out, doesn't mean to put in. And when we really do honor the child and support the drawing out of who they are into expression, into the world, it's pretty awesome. And sometimes the culture can get a little stuck in negative praise. In other words, telling the child everything that's wrong with them and really conforming the child to that image of what their power person, what their parent did with them. And so often it's about, what we don't want. And that seems to be one of the hang-up points of what we refer to in this work as the non-being mind, is that it knows everything that it doesn't want. And when it languages out of what it doesn't want, Charlie, don't talk to me like that. Charlie, don't run down those stairs and break your neck. We give specific instructions without realizing that's what we're doing with the child, as opposed to introducing perhaps at a very early stage, if there are behaviors that are out of harmony with family harmony, cultural harmony and such, to introduce the child to the process of forgiveness, so that as opposed to being condemned or dragged down for their behavior, they're supported in, that's one that really doesn't fit, that doesn't really work very well, so how would you like to learn how to forgive that? How would you like to learn how to remove that pattern so that we can get on with harmony in our household? I think is probably an important key in the whole process as well, an adjunct to that praising. Harmony,
yes, that resonates with me. There's a research study that I have on my Mommy Manual. I believe the post is called To Praise or Discourage. And it's very interesting on what happens to a child that is praised for who they are versus what they're doing. So that's one of the things I invite parents into, is to praise the action or the outcome or their power in the world in being helpful or being creative or being, working hard on the sports field or any of the other number of things we want to praise our kids for. We're excited, we're proud, we want to show them love. And so this research study is very interesting. They have a child working a puzzle, and the researcher, while the child's working the puzzle, is praising the child for being so smart. You are so smart. Look at you putting that puzzle together. You're so smart. And so the end result is when the child gets the puzzle correct, they feel smart because of their capability in putting this very easy puzzle together. Then they give the child a difficult puzzle, and the researcher is sitting there, and the child is struggling in putting the puzzle together, and you can see them deflate. They feel dumb, because if A equals B, right, if A plus B equals C, and so now I'm not doing the puzzle well, so i.e. I must not be smart. And so the caution, and then they show in the same research study a child being praised for their effort. So you are really applying yourself. You are really working hard at that puzzle as the child's working. The child completes the easy puzzle, feels pride in a job well done or having worked hard at it, gets a harder puzzle, and then amidst the challenge does not immediately deflate, but you can see them rising to the challenge, okay? Because I've been rewarded or I've been verbally, praised for my effort and for who I'm being in the world, not just who I innately am. And so this child doesn't feel dumb in struggling with the puzzle, but feels challenged and therefore works hard and in the end gets the puzzle. And the last part of the research study is they asked each of these children, you get a third puzzle now. Would you like one like the first puzzle that you did or like the second puzzle? And the one that was praised for being smart chooses the first puzzle. They want an easy challenge because they were praised for being smart because of their innate ability. And the child who was praised for the effort, 9 out of 10 times, is choosing the latter, the harder puzzle. Will give me another challenge. So I find that as a parent really actionable and very useful.
That's pretty profound.
And, I can feel it working in me. I mean, it's a very human thing. It's what are people around you praising? I mean, you have to look at that. I mean, what is being praised? And are we living into someone else's praise, or are we living into who we are and what we feel called to be and do?
Right.
Can you hear me? Oh, sorry.
Yes, loud and clear. Loud and clear.
Okay, I got another third party on the line for a second there.
Oh, okay.
In my ear. So that brings up a lot of questions. What I see first, that because we introduce that usually in class 3. Class 4, parents come back and they're feeling immobilized, like, okay, now I'm catching myself, but now I want the new words. How do I say I love that drawing, or that's so pretty, or you're amazing, or you're such a great artist. Those are the things they were saying. You're such a great artist. That's amazing. You're amazing. And so, for me, it just starts with praising their power in the world or the end result, not the person. So you're not stupid, you're not bad, you're not the opposite of those things. Maybe the actions are challenging or helpful. That was really helpful when you saw I needed a diaper and you brought one over to me. Thank you. So we're honoring their empathy and their kindness in that moment, the power that they are in the world, in their gifts, not, you are such a good girl, what a big girl you are. It was such a good girl. Thank you, for that. Do you feel that, the difference?
Yeah, big difference.
And, like anything with words that we choose and use, at first it doesn't feel natural. It feels forced to say, to really think and pause and then choose words. And that's, what parents say to me and what I feel at times. And that's okay. It's okay to feel forced because it means you're pausing and you're getting really intentional about your words versus knee-jerk reaction. What just flows out of your mouth, maybe just pausing and getting really intentional about your words doesn't feel quite natural at first, but it's a beautiful thing, just that pause.
Cool.
Yeah.
So what else is there to share about praising from where you sit?
Praising well. Or praising. Yeah, I think the whole duality thing, so even on, quote, praising well, right? It's like the whole pressure to do good or be good or parent right. And I think duality, I'd love to hear you speak to duality and the play that it has on us as parents. Because even if we are rewarding or praising or highlighting the positives or the harmony moments, are we manipulating? Is it conditioning?
Right. Well, last night I watched a film which I found was rather interesting, and I was going to share it with you to suggest that Sean watch it. It's called The Fastest Indian, and there are a couple of scenes in it where there's a young boy about maybe 8 years of age who is learning from this man who's building a motorcycle. The Indian is an early Harley, like back in the 20s. And this guy, it's a true story, this guy is in New Zealand, and he has worked for 25 years to build this motorcycle. And at a couple of shots, I would swear that Sean's standing there, this young boy. You know, I could just see Sean as a young kid in this scene that quotes Theodore Roosevelt. And to me, it kind of ties in here with whether we're praising the outcome or the effort involved. And the story, The Fastest Indian, is a true story about this man who, I'm not sure exactly what age he is, but he's probably in his late 60s or early 70s when he finally loads his motorcycle onto a boat. He gets enough money together. He's about, they're telling him he's probably going to have a heart attack. He's got angina. And he's like, I'm going to do this before I die. So he loads his motorcycle and goes to Bonneville Salt Flats to race it. And he gets there, and he's kind of, you know, backwoods New Zealander, and he doesn't know that you have to register in advance, and he doesn't have all the fancy trimmings that all these racers have. He's just a guy who's built this bike from scratch, and, you know, this kid, I mean, it's just cute. I think Sean would enjoy that. But the quote that he brings forward that I think ties in here, and I was thinking about this as he said it last night, is he quotes Roosevelt, where Roosevelt says, "The credit belongs to the man who's actually in the arena, whose face is marred with sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, who knows who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotion, spends himself in a worthy cause, who at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at worst, if fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that this place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who've never tasted victory or defeat." And this guy actually puts his boat on a ship. He goes through hell to get to race it. They won't let him because he doesn't have all the safety equipment. And they finally decide, well, they're going to make an exception. And this is in 1952, and he actually breaks a world land speed record with his homemade Indian, the world's fastest Indian. And he goes back 9 times again to set new records.
Wow.
I mean, it's just an amazing movie. It's very inspiring. But you know, when you heard that quote from Roosevelt, and it just ties right in with what you just said about, you know, praising the effort and the work that kids do. And this guy, awesome. Beautiful. And then there's the bonus if you guys get it and watch it of there's Sean right there.
There he is. It's probably a lot like Colin, our son, then, because Colin looks like Sean.
Very much like Colin.
That there is no effort without error. And yes, if we praise junkies, they are going to be scared if they think they are blank because of blank. I am blank, my identity, because of blank. Then when they don't achieve, quote, greatness or ease, accomplishment, they will be disencouraged. And that really is the point. What are we doing? Are we encouraging or discouraging? And yes, we want to encourage the effort, not the outcome, so that the child is able to follow their bliss and listen. I think right with that is the conversation around intuition, to be able to discern, am I supposed to be a crazy person and get my first of all, build this bike and then load the bike and then go against all odds and do this thing? How do we know when we're called to be and do these things if not that we listen and follow our bliss. And so I think that's a nice tie-in there with intuition.
Yes, and I think that, to when the child makes the mistake, rather than what so many parents, because of their power person dynamic, what so many parents do is, oh, well, see, you're never going to make it, you're never, as opposed to, I think one of the greatest messages they give a child is, wow, you made a mistake, how cool is that? You went for it, let's see if we can make another mistake, let's see if we can, you're going to do great things, and in doing great things, Edison went through something like 10,000 different things before he, and at one point they said, well, you failed, 9,000 so many times. And he said, no, I've succeeded. I now know 9,000 and whatever number of things that won't work.
That won't work. I love that quote. That's a great quote, yeah.
And he created it, because he was able, he had the kind of support. And here's a guy who had 3 months of formal schooling, and he invented, there's so many things that Edison invented. Many people don't know he invented synthetic rubber. He invented Portland cement, not just the brick tool and the light bulb, but so many things, and without any education whatsoever.
The power of one, too. It's a great story in The Power of One. It can be so overwhelming to think, how can I be light? How could I, quote, change the world? How can I cause transformation? How can I listen to my inner bliss and follow and trust? And then, it's so inspiring for kids, I think, even for all of us, to look through others' lives and be led through, through this inspiration of a single life, like, Edison, Einstein, Roosevelt, and the challenges, and then the prevailing, or what they were able to do.
Right, there's another awesome line this gentleman delivers in the movie to this young boy that's kind of, his next-door neighbor, and he's just right there with him building this bike. And he says, if you don't follow through with your dreams, you may as well be a vegetable. Every child was given this capacity to dream, and so often there's the terror of making a mistake, that reaching out beyond the boundaries, because they've been terrorized over every mistake, rather than, I can go for a mistake, I can do it, and so if I fall flat on my face, so what? I've got a parent there who's there to pick me up and support me, rather than a parent that's going to put me down. It's just such an important dynamic.
It is. Yeah, that really resonates something to me, something that, somebody had asked me about. So, and actually, Father Gary at the Newman Center in St. Louis, Missouri, he did a homily about the little engine that could. And I loved his perspective because it turned everything that I had ever thought of on its head. And he said, like, this whole line that we sell kids, that you can do anything, and I think I can, he actually called it into question. And he said, what are we telling kids? Basically, his focus was, I can, and sometimes I can't. And sometimes I don't. And sometimes I fail. And sometimes, and in those times, where do we go and who do we lean on? And that really, in our weaknesses, that we are mystics in our weaknesses, often in not only our strengths, and we get down on ourselves about our low points or our challenges, but in being human and sharing ourselves honestly and wholly with each other and leaning on, we really inspire people. And he used the example of a kid who was in college and had a challenge passing his boards, and shared it with people, and how much more human he became to Father Gary, and how much more real, and how much he respected him, and he worked hard, and he passed them the next time. So as opposed to covering these parts of ourselves, these imperfections, to love those imperfect, challenged, quote, failing parts of ourselves. And, I just loved it because I love the little engine that could, and I think I can, and, the inspiring kids to, dream big and take on challenges. And then I loved just that perspective, almost opposite, the perspective that he added to that.
And I think we can include both. Again, we can include both in that. Inspire, live your dream, and if you fall, great, I'm here to support you. It's okay.
Absolutely. Yes.
As opposed to you have to take away the dream. No, it's there. You can. And if you don't, that's cool too. Guess what?
Right.
You're a human being and you deserve our love just because the Creator put the breath of life in you. Nothing else is required. And I think that message to a child is just one of the most awesome messages that they can get.
Absolutely.
Well, let's check in and see if Dr. Tim is with us and if he has anything to share, and if Julie is with us and if she has anything to share.
Wonderful.
I'm here.
They are both.
They're both on. How do you do?
Yay.
Well, I was. Do you have anything to add to the conversation, sir?
Oh, sure. These are great conversations and powerful questions that come up with parents a lot. One of the things I was thinking about as you and Suzanne were talking is some of the stuff that I learned through the Love and Logic programs. And one of the primary things they do with Love and Logic is they try and train people to ask their children more questions. So that's right in line with your definition of education and the root of it being educare, to draw out. And when I ask my child a question, the right kind of question, that isn't just a statement in disguise, I'm actually stimulating them to think. And so there's a fundamental chunk there that if we ask, so in the example of Suzanne where the child brought the diaper over, and the parent can say, thank you, and how do you feel when you do things like that? Rather than telling them, you're so good because you did that, or that was one thing or another. And there's a process that they developed in the classroom where the teacher can ask children when they get it right, how did you do that? And there's a list of statements on the board that they put up in a poster that says, I can't remember them all, but there are 4 or 5 or 6 different things that say, I stopped and thought about it, I practiced, I took responsibility for my own behavior, I asked for help when I needed it. So when a child gets a good it applies to grown-ups too. Are we there?
I'm here.
So when you get a good score on a paper or a good result on a test, the teacher asks, well, how did you do that? And they start to look at what the process is within themselves that builds results that they want. And that's the kind of thing I was prompted to think about while you were talking about praise. And I fully agree with what Suzanne is saying, that it's the idea, from my perspective, of the goal of parenting for me is to be the role model for the kind of person I hope my children will become, and to get to know them and their particular strengths and desires, because as that gets nurtured and they express through that, that's when their creativity is going to flower.
Mm-hmm.
Fabulous. Yay. Is Julie with us?
Yes. Julie and Magda both are on. That was actually, I think one of them didn't have their phone muted, so I muted them back. So they are both now on. Hi, Magda. Hi, Julie.
Hi there, Jeanie.
Hi.
I have something to add to your conversation about praise. I love that study, Suzanne, that you were quoting from. It's really, really a wonderful study. And the concept of intrinsic praise from the child to the child, as opposed to extrinsic, coming from somebody else, parent or teacher, one of the things you said that parents are asking for new language. So one of the things you might plug them into is just exactly what Dr. Tim was saying. Ask the child. So when the kiddo brings a picture to you and says, "Look, Mommy or Daddy," instead of saying, "Oh, that's so pretty," or "Oh, you did a good job," turn it around to the child. "Oh, what do you think about it? How do you feel about it?" And give the power to the child to have the decisions about his or her own work. So that. Go ahead.
Oh yes, absolutely. That is Reggio approach does a beautiful job with that, and in the question asking is such a nice way to phrase that, to give that as a tool to parents. Now that you say it that way, you know, the Reggio approach with the kids, with my kids at school, you'll often hear the question being, "Tell me about this picture."
Yes.
And it's so fruitful. What a fruitful question. Yes. Verse one that I think is less fruitful is, "Oh, what did you draw?" That's one that I've taken out of my language because I feel like it limits the child as an answer that, okay, you only draw for the purpose of creating objects versus all the many reasons that kids create. And if you look at us as adults, how often is the question back, "Oh, what is this?" You know, versus, "Tell me about this picture." Or how
that's a beautiful, beautiful way to get the child to enter their opinions and their experience. There was another thing I wanted to add, and that was around the failure aspect. And I remember when simple things like a child learning to write his or her name to print, okay, we're talking about kindergarten, and so often the child would say, "I don't know how to make my G. I always make it backwards," or something like that. And so what I would put into that conversation was, "Yeah, you don't know how yet, but you're learning. And part of learning is to make mistakes, so that's great." And yet became a really important word because it gave the child the anticipation of, "Oh, I will do that, or I can do that."
Love it.
They're great.
You don't know yet, but you are learning, and learning, part of learning is making mistakes.
Right. Right. Yeah, so those are the things I wanted to add today.
I'm writing them all down.
There's another aspect of our culture, and what many parents and actually sometimes religions do, is that think it's an overreaction to people becoming egotistical. It's self-deprecation, which I think is a major error. I can certainly understand how the error occurred. If somebody gets too big for their britches, they're in trouble. And so that ego game, I think trying to squash it because of fear leads to that self-deprecation as opposed to appropriate correction. And, you know, helping the child into guidelines that supports them in recognizing how awesome they are in every way and how to keep balance within their own lives and keep themselves in that balanced place as an awesome being that doesn't have to go off into their own ego. You know, you listen to them talk about Yeshua, and it says, "Who thought it not robbery to be equal with God and yet remain humble." Didn't become an ego trip. And so I think we need to guard against that one of moving to overcorrection and self-deprecation of the child, or teaching that, which sadly has harmed tremendously through those unconscious messages and that unconscious process, many people in the process.
Can you give us your definition of humble? I think it would be so fruitful, because I think some of that just comes from a misunderstanding of the goal. And if it is, quote, to be humble, what is true humility?
Well, in the Aramaic, as opposed to, you know, groveling the earth like a worm, humility is a mental quality and it's the mental quality of being able to see and cooperate with the good desires of others. In other words, to look for the highest and best in people and to acknowledge and speak of that, as opposed to, we've all got our lowest and worst. And so it doesn't mean you don't look at the lowest and worst, doesn't mean you don't deal with it. If it becomes a factor in one's life, then it needs to be addressed. But that humility is continuously working to cooperate with and support the highest and best in another, which I think is an awesome thing for a parent to have with their child. I think so often because of, again, the power person dynamics, we've been taught by our power person they were superior as the parent, therefore we must be superior. And as you've said many times in the show before, what a learning opportunity to have children. They are such awesome teachers.
Yeah.
Hey, Julie, do you have anything to share with us?
Yes, I do, actually. Going back to the writing situation that Magda mentioned, what I would do with children when they were learning how to write, there was a very stressful time. And since I taught kindergarten and first grade, that was the time period where they were learning how to do the printing called manuscript writing. Anyway, I would teach them to work on training their hand so that they could take responsibility for the outcome of their writing. And rather than getting personal, which a lot of teachers would get personal about that your writing is sloppy or your writing is not neat, or, you just really tell them the truth that, as you train your hand, your writing will improve. And then we would give them plasticine, things like that, to strengthen the muscles in their hand. So they got to be able to take responsibility for, their writing. And then also, one of the things I agree with Magda, I would throw it back on the child. What my experience was with children, and I know this is a projection because I was definitely this people-pleasing puppets almost. I was definitely a people-pleaser. I would do everything to, what my parents wanted me to do, and I've done a lot of worksheets on this. So I noticed that the children were constantly wanting to please me, bringing me up their papers, bringing me up their work, wanting me to validate them. And I learned that they needed to validate themselves, so I would throw it back at them. So how do you like your writing? So how do you like your story? And how do you like your picture? Tell me about it. I think that's a great idea, Suzanne, and that, because oftentimes their picture doesn't necessarily make sense to the adult mind, but, man, they know what they did. And it's so much better for them to explain and for you to have a different understanding. And, and then sometimes I would add writing to their picture, so then now they have a new dimension because they see the writing to describe their picture, they have the picture, and, it creates a different learning environment. But I think the biggest thing was to, get away from that praise so much, but acknowledge them for when they're following the rules. Hey, I see that you're really on target. I see that you are, following the rules. You should feel good about that, and nurturing them in a different way. That patting on the head is something that I think should be gone. We need to really support them feeling successful within themselves, and that I don't validate them. They begin to validate themselves.
Absolutely.
Well, there's also another piece to the puzzle, Julie, that occurs to me, and that is that Julie has developed a system of writing called the Haverstick method, a system of teaching children to print and to write that is relatively free of stress. It takes them to more what the body naturally does. I don't know all the intricacies of it, but it might be something that parents might be interested in, especially parents who have schools and teachers that are open to new ideas, because I think your idea there is really powerful. Would you share it?
Oh, absolutely. I actually, in Theodosia, they used it in the preschool the last couple of years. And what happened over time, I was watching the children write, and I was watching the stress and the crying that took place. And, even though we did this very slowly, it still was a stressful situation of them learning how to train their hand. A lot of these kids never held a pencil before because they're inner city. And so, sometimes I would just put a crayon in their hand. They just didn't have the skills that a lot of children do come in to school with. And so over time, they taught me how they naturally write, and they naturally write from the bottom up, not the top down. And they push away, and when they push away, it is so easy for them to learn how to write. So I started to watch and observe and observe and observe, and finally I put together a book that shows, it has, you know, different pages, and it shows them how to take these steps and easily get them to write letters and then words and then sentences. And also I put in some of my philosophies that the children, again, taught me. I really was a learner in this whole process. But once I got that, I noticed that children, when new children would come into my classroom and they didn't know how to write, other children would say to them, it's all right. Mrs. Haverstick knows a way, and you can learn this pretty easily. So I was pretty amazed. They validated it. Yeah, it was great.
I love it. Did you do a lot of fine motor activities and hand strengthening that were outside of the goal of, let's say, the perfect letter? That you took them outside of only hand to pencil to paper, or was it all techniques that involved pencil to paper?
Most of the things that, you know, I did do a lot of things with plasticine because I know it strengthens the little muscles in the hands, and oftentimes boys would have trouble because their muscles in their hands develop a little bit after the girls. So the girls usually were neater in their handwriting. But I did mostly that, and then I did little exercises with just plain paper without lines, you know, so that they began to just experience holding the pencil, sitting in the chair. I mean, that's major for a little one, to sit in the chair, hold the pencil, hold the crayon, follow direction. You know, just follow all those things. People think they take that for nothing. Like when a child comes into my classroom in kindergarten, and some of them are 4, they don't even understand the concept of lining up. What does that mean, lining up? You know, come on, we're going to line up for lunch. They have no idea. So all those things have to be patterned and taught. And so I work toward patterning them, seeing where they are. Are they able to follow the directions? Are they able to use the crayon? Are they able to hold it? Are they able to sit in the chair? You know? And as that happens, then we begin to, you know, to work on writing. But I think that my attitude was more of giving them empowerment, helping them, you know, train their hand. When I taught them to train their hand, that took off so much stress. They realized it was something that they could do, you know, versus anything of, you know, the negative of labeling them in any way.
I love it. I love the idea of training the hand. It helps the child think of it as almost from outside of themselves, like I am helping my hand learn, I'm helping myself learn to write. First, the whole of like my identity, my being is judged by the outcome of my writing on this paper, which the wording of you're sloppy or that's not good work, try harder, that becomes, you know, negative to their core, to their being, to who they are as a person, versus what they wrote on a piece of paper with their hand. I love the idea of the hand, you know.
Right, and you know, they would actually look at their hand, you know, and I said, you know, maybe you just want to rub your hand a little bit and, you know, take the pencil, and then, you know, I'd ask them how they liked it, and they would tell you the truth. Well, I think it could be better. I said, well, then, you know, just work at it, and as you train your hand, it will get better. I promise, it will get better. Just keep working on it. Again, and put it back on them and empowered them, again, empowered them to follow the rules. When you put things back on a child, they are strengthened. I feel that that phrasing creates more of that, you know, that codependency. That I have other words for it. I don't want to use them on the radio show, but anyway, you know, I just feel like I call it people pleasing puppets, you know, and it's just not okay, you know. It's so nice to see them take hold and actually come up and tell you how they like their writing or they like their story or whatever, you know, that they are now part of the whole education process.
Well, Mrs. Haverstick, maybe I need to get you to teach me to write again, because nobody ever told me my handwriting was going to get better, and it didn't.
You got to train your hand, Michael.
There you go. I'll start tomorrow.
What I love, Julie, is the acceptance that you are modeling in this, and for teaching as for parents, the nugget and the takeaway for me could be embodied in meeting your child where they are. And when you let go of expectations in the moment, each moment is a moment of what is in this moment. And can I meet my child where they are and be with what is? So much of parenting for me is holding on to letting go. And can I be with my child where they are in this moment? And what's keeping me from being with my child where they are in this moment? Is it a form of conditioning within me? Is it fear? Is it guilt? Is it, outside pressures? And then letting go and tuning in. And that is my hope with the whole self-awareness and the breath work that we do with parents, is just having that option. Is it an option? Do I have the tools to be here now and be with what is? Because at some point, it just doesn't even feel like it's an option for people. That there's just an immediate knee-jerk reaction that occurs. And therefore, I give my power away, and I don't have any choices,
Right.
Suzanne,
this is
Suzanne, go ahead. Excuse me. Go for it.
In regard to the question you asked, Suzanne, about training the hand, I agree with everything that Julie said. That's fantastic work to do with children that way. Some of the other things that we would do, and I'm sure she did this in her classroom as well, of course, working with puzzles, anything that has to do with the eye-hand coordination and utilizing the fingers in different ways. So utilizing puzzles for that, and even something as basic, and this comes in again to accepting the children where they are and moving from there, something as basic as being able to turn the pages in a book, because I'm sure Julie has had the experience, as I have, with children coming to school who are not familiar with books, who don't know how to hold a book the right side up and which direction to turn, left to right, and so forth. So modeling that and teaching that as a skill so that everyone is included in the process and no one is spotted out as, oh, well, you're stupid, you don't know how. But that also uses small muscle coordination. We used to play a game. Sometimes we played bingo or something like that, alphabet bingo, number bingo. And we would make popcorn, which was a whole other experience of doing that. But then each child would have their place at the table with a scoop of popcorn, a little mound of popcorn on a napkin. And every time that a certain letter was called, didn't matter who got it, each child would be able to take one piece of popcorn and eat it. However, they had a challenge of, okay, this time do it with your thumb and your little finger. And the next time, let's do it with the thumb and the ring finger and so forth. So things like that are just built into the curriculum. Most people think kindergarten kids are playing all day. Ha, 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 ha. There's a lot more going on in a
picking up popcorn, fine motor training. And isn't play-based learning the best? When you can disguise the learning as play, then you really are onto something.
Absolutely.
I love that. I love the fine motor invitations, and I think Pinterest is such a valuable resource for parents. If you've been on it, there are so many great, simple sensory integration ideas, sensory play, and fine motor play ideas on Pinterest that are very actionable, that take no special tools, that are, things that are around your house. And yes, when learning is a pulling out and is a fun and is a play, when education is to draw out versus thinking that we are putting something in, we are at our highest and best.
Well, a couple of things I'd like to add to the conversation are, one, when you talked about each moment, there's a poem that I use a lot in the Y workshop entitled Each Moment. It goes like this: each moment of love, each moment of giving, each moment of joy is a moment of living. Each moment of anger, each moment of lying, each moment of resentment is a moment of dying. All our moments add together like the digits in a sum, and the answer tells us plainly whether life or death shall come. I think that's an awesome thing to teach children, that at every moment they've got a choice as to the quality of energy that they engage in. And Magda, you brought up the child who, perhaps because at home with their power person they were called stupid if they didn't know something, which, they just didn't know something, to use that as a teaching moment in the classroom, to embrace the child who doesn't know, to be able to model for the children where perhaps they haven't gotten it in their homes or their communities or our competition-oriented society, to model that, when we have a friend or a new friend or an acquaintance that doesn't know, we're there to support them and assist them and uplift them and learn what we know, as opposed to put them down and call them stupid, that competition game. And I really like to stress the idea that I think for every minute of competitive sports done in school or out of school, every minute there should be a corresponding minute of a cooperative endeavor between the competitors. If they're playing baseball against another team, then that very team and those two teams should have to come together and do something cooperative in the community to stress the cooperation, the caring, and the support, rather than the dislike down to what I've seen as hating someone just because they're on another team. I think that's such a powerful thing to put that cooperative in, because we've misinterpreted Darwin. It was not the survival of the fittest. It was the survival or the thriving of the most cooperative. And I think we need to move in that direction of teaching cooperation as much as we teach competitive sports. And Julie, two things. Your book is at the printers. I hope we're going to have it within the next week to 10 days. So Healing Children, Loving Children is going to be available through our website. And also, do you want to tell people how to order, if there are parents who want the Haverstick method of teaching writing, how to order that?
Yeah, they can just give me a call at 273-417-273-4060. I have about maybe 8 copies right now that I can send out.
Okay, 417-273-4060.
Correct.
Cool.
And there was one more thing that I think Suzanne was saying, and I sense about wanting the child to be a certain way. Oftentimes parents and teachers, I did as a teacher, project onto their children, and they want the children to be a certain way. And I realized that I needed to cooperate with the children to get them to be the way they're going to be. And as I teach them the rules, they will show me how they're going to be, and we work together. We work together in harmony. And so I think that when a parent goes to impose, or it comes like I came from a level of fear, like, if I don't do these different things, then they're going to be this way. Well, it really wasn't true. If I did my work and I was willing to cooperate, work with them, it changed. The whole energy changed within the classroom.
There is a beautiful video, Julie, that uses animals to highlight this, and it is so well done. I will put it on my Mommy Manual later today. It is it's a story about the animals, and the eagle was so great at flying, but he could not swim. And so the teachers decided to cut his flying classes and put him in double swim class because this eagle was so bad at swimming. And it goes on, and it basically describes many of the missings of our educational system, and I would say, parenting out of fear, and invites us into the other reality, which is to see your child for who they are and inspire their gifts and their desires and love them for who they are and allow them to shine, allow them to soar and be that eagle. and let go of the need for them to swim when they're an eagle.
Right.
Beautifully done.
Yeah. Hey, I would like to read. Do you remember when we started this out with I am somebody?
Yes.
And I was wondering if it's okay to read. I found my copy, but I think you and I critiqued this one a little bit. Is that okay?
Go for it, please.
And I believe that I think a woman had this in the prison, and she read it every day, and it just supported her so much. So I think maybe this is something maybe Rex, and if they can, or, if Marianne and I were talking about this, maybe take into the prison. So it says, I am somebody. I am bright, capable, and lovable. I am teachable and learn easily. I am willing, receptive, and supportable. I am a gentle listener, and I tell the truth. I am respectful of myself and others. I am cooperative and responsible for my feelings and choices. I am able to see the highest and best in myself and others. I am supportive with my thoughts, words, and actions. I am able to use time wisely. It is valuable to me. I am the best me I can possibly be each day. I am somebody. I am love.
Yay.
Yay.
For sure.
How we changed it is we put I am in front of it. We know those words are very powerful. And so it's titled I am. And so each one makes a commitment of I am.
Cool. Well, we're down to about a minute and a half. And so anybody with a last quick thought before we close out the show?
Just very grateful for this community.
There were about 3 people with their hands up. I would invite them to call back tomorrow, even though it's not Parent-Teacher Day. Please be part of the show again tomorrow.
Yes, let's do it. I look forward to hearing their questions tomorrow.
Awesome.
And thank you.
Awesome. All right, well, thank you, everybody, for joining us. It is a privilege to gather in this community 5 days a week, and we invite you to bring a stranger to the show tomorrow. If you're ready to take your work to the next level, we'll be starting our intensive season in about 2 weeks with the Food, Fun, Forgiveness, and Work Project, a 10-day economy program for Heartland, and then we're doing a 16-day codependence communication practicum, a new intensive we've never done before. Then will come a 9-day Why Is This Happening to Me Again? For those that want to deepen their experience of the forgiveness work and or to teach, 9-day teacher training, and then 16-day Laws of Living. So we appreciate everybody who joins us every day, and give the world the best gift you could possibly give. Have the best year yet of your eternal life. Blessings. Bye-bye.